Fantasy art history with Abelard and Joe.
Well, hi everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Art History with Abelard. That's me and Joe.
I'm Joe.
How's it going, Joe?
I've been better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember when I told you about that backhoe.
Hmm.
I thought I would like get a job, maybe running the backhoe.
Did they not look at your application?
No, so I went down there again to like look at it.
Yeah.
So they're big and orange and powerful. And
Yeah.
there were some guys there who worked for the city. They were driving it around, and I said, "Hey, can I try it out?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, come up here." And I was like, "This is
Really?
great. Yeah, like I made new friends. They're like
Yeah.
everything's like." So so I got up in the big seat. You ever sat in a backhoe before?
No, it's now that you're mentioning it, I sort of feel regretful that I haven't. What was it like?
Well, it's not like I thought it would be. I I I I I thought I could do it, but I sat down in that chair and it was like there's all these big sticks you
Yeah.
pull, and the whole earth lays before you, sort of waiting for you to make your mark upon it with the power of
The excavator, or maybe the shovel.
the countless horses that run around in its motor or whatever that works like. And
Yeah.
I thought I, I work with material and make
Yeah.
sculptures. I create things, and
Hmm.
I thought it would be as easy, you
Kind of a
know.
natural.
Yeah, I thought I would just take to it like a mm, I don't know, like one of those moles that lives under the ground or something. Do you think do you think they would give me a job?
A mole?
Yeah, maybe it's easier if you're underground.
You mean to wiggle around in the dirt like a mole?
Yeah, and you dig, but the digging is secret and no one can tell.
Yeah.
Maybe I could get a job doing that.
I don't know if they'd give you a job so much as if you went down there, they would sort of let you.
Well, the thing is, I gotta I need some cash because I
Yeah.
want to, like,
Well, moles don't have any money.
oh, well,
Notoriously illiquid species.
hmm.
But I guess you could maybe get some work as like a. You could write copy for the backhoe company, experience the godlike power of sitting in the seat of this backhoe. I mean, that was really beautiful what you said earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
God, gee, thanks.
Yeah.
I never thought of myself as an author before, but maybe it's my calling.
Wow.
Yeah.
What if that turned out to be? I mean, there has to be, it can't just be superstars, you know? There's, not everybody can be name of superstar. Not everybody can be uh Taylor Swift. Some people have to be the middleman who gouge her tickets through various digital interfaces, you know?
No, I'm gonna be a superstar. I'm gonna write copy for the backhoe company, but it's gonna be so good they're gonna put it in the Paris Review. Why dream small? That's what I always say.
Well,
Well,
what are we talking about today, Joe?
we're gonna talk about one of my favorite artists from my own childhood, and I think also from yours.
I had a little contact with this artist in my childhood too.
This is sort of when you're a little kid, sometimes you see someone's drawings and the desire to be able to do that takes over the entire rest of your life until you die. And this is probably that artist for me.
Wow.
So her name is Trina Schart Hyman. She uh, illustrated children's books. She also did helped found, I think, and did a lot of illustrations for Cricket magazine,
Oh,
which
really?
was a favorite of mine as a child as
Yeah, I
well.
loved cricket as a
Yeah,
kid.
Cricket was great. She was also a lesbian,
Oh,
which I only bring up because as a child, you would turn to the back of the book and be like, who's what's this lady like
Yeah.
whose abilities I want to have more than anything else in the entire world.
Is it like she
Um,
lives in a cottage with her business partner?
she lives in a farm in Vermont with her best friend. And as a
Yeah.
child, I thought, huh, what does that mean?
You didn't know that living with your best friend was an option.
I didn't know that um well I was like 10 and I didn't know about lesbians yet.
Yeah, you didn't know what a euphemism was.
But later on I did, and then I was like, oh, I always kind of felt like I always kind of got that vibe from her. I don't know. It's not important to the art, but in a
No.
way it's kind of important to the experience of growing up and encountering lifestyles that you didn't know you could hope for. And I guess that's why I bring it up because it's sad that it was probably very important to her, but she had to, kind of excise it from her biography until after she died.
Yep.
Anyway, let's look at some art. Here we go. I'm finding the art. I'm gonna click the. Oh,
Yep.
I almost got it. Wait, there it is.
Yeah. This really brings me back. I didn't remember this. I just knew I loved this book when I was a kid. So there are so many things about this that I'm looking at, and I immediately vividly remember what it was like to look at this when I was small.
Yeah, this is an illustration for Saint George and the Dragon, a retelling of the story of Saint George killing the dragon at length. It takes a really long time. I think fully the most of this book is a lengthy several day dragon battle, and it's
That's what I
rad.
remember. I think he dies and is brought back to life or something like that.
Yeah, like an apple. It's from the Fairy Queen, Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen. So it's really like
Yeah,
lengthy, lies under an apple tree, it gets dew on him, it brings him back to life. The dragon roasts him in his armor. It's very hot. He almost dies. Did you ever read The Fairy Queen?
did not read The Fairy Queen.
Yeah, I haven't read the whole thing, but if you ever wanted to read a poem where people's heads get cleaved in half, here's your chance. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
That really is missing from poetry. That and Beowulf. But everybody else, all the other poets, T.S. Eliot,
Notable lack of cleaving.
Warsan Shira,
Nope, no cleaving.
Rupi Kaur, you're on notice. I want to see some cleaved heads.
I want more epics, and
Yeah.
I want there to
Billy Collins, and nothing facile. No plays on words. Literal cleaved heads. Don't try and sneak one by me, you little bastard.
he'll make it cute.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway, you know what's a nice middle ground between being cute and being extremely serious is what's going on in these images.
yeah, I agree. It's hard for me to look at this kind of without seeing it through the eyes of my childhood self. Um, but and also, what else makes this hard is that this is part of a text, and I think more than a lot of the other art we've looked at so far, this is kind of losing out by not being in its context as
Yeah.
part of a sequence of images. And this was, especially in this book, which, I recommend anyone who, likes this stuff, get a copy, give it to your kids or just have it for yourself because every one of these images is composed very beautifully as a full double spread picture with enough room for the text in it, and the text is placed beautifully. And looking at it in just one page like this, you're not getting the full effect. One thing I think is really that she does that's really beautiful is these dark red burgundy colored bars that cross like frame the scene but don't obscure it at all. So that repeats in every image of this book, and I feel like if you're dealing with something like this that's kind of medieval in flavor, that you would the easy thing to do would be like, I'm going to do a sort of decorative, really ornate kind of
Like
flourishes
the
and stuff.
Aubrey Beardsley Mort Arthur or something like that.
Yeah, and this is it's so plain, but it also works so beautifully with the images. Like I just think it just is an incredible decision.
It almost has the flavor of like a like I'm reading Frankenstein and it opens with a guy writing some letters to his sister and talking about how he met the most incredible guy. Frankenstein, and Frankenstein told him a story, and now the guy's going to write it down. And it's like literary agency in the same way. This is like you are seeing. This is an image that you are seeing through a lens, right? It's being depicted for you. You're not quite in the image in the same way, right? You're separated by like a layer of presentation.
Yeah. Similarly to how you are currently seeing everything through the lens of guy who just started reading Frankenstein for the first time.
Wow.
Yep, that's how it goes. So let's see. What do you think about the dragon design?
Love the dragon design. So if we wanted to tie it back to how are people depicting their monsters these days? I think there in a lot of this kind of art in video games and stuff, people draw the dragons as being kind of curiously ripped in an almost humanoid way. Like they have big pecs and shoulders, which is weird looking to me. Um, you know who I think gets it right? Godzilla. Godzilla's just a big lumpy monster,
Yeah, that's
you know.
true.
But and this particular dragon doesn't have like super like this is not a cut dragon. It doesn't have a bunch of muscle in the like human standard of that's something that looks like a strong guy. It more looks like a giant lizard where the limbs seem sort of floppy and ancillary. But alligators are like that, and alligators can run 50 miles an hour and bite through steel or whatever.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
mess you up.
So it's even though its claws in particular look very sort of soft and cuddly in a way that it's presented makes it clear that what we're doing here is very serious. And that I think the sort of like thick, almost jammy blood coming out of the hail tip really sells you
Mhm.
on the fact that like what's going on here is actually physically consequential. These characters, even though the dragon's pose is almost like a heraldic, right, with its like posture and its like rampant S curve and its tongue out and everything, it's like there's real physical urgency to this situation.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is the posing of the knight St. George. Also, like it's just that's how you pose someone who's about to hew something.
Yep.
That's a hewing posture. But this is a really key thing to do, and not every artist gets that. Like
Yeah.
you can't start in the middle of the motion when you're drawing. It has to be
Mhm.
at on one end or the other, the like utmost tension moment of the position,
Yeah.
because we're just getting an instant. But this instant, this like tells us everything we need to know about where that sword's going next.
Yeah,
And
it needs to be like a photograph of a piano that's like 30 feet in the air, and you know that it's going to fall down, right? It
mhm,
has to be sort of pregnant with potential energy.
yes.
There's if you go to like if you do that in an inconsiderate way though, you get a separate kind of art which is just two figures doing dynamic poses sort of at one another, which also feels very like anesthetic
Yes, see
and fake.
every comic book.
Yeah. But these characters actually look like they're physically concerned. Like they're literally pushing on the same shield in opposite directions, and you can see the force being exerted.
That's so great too, because it's not just like, they're fighting. It's like we're seeing a specific sequence of events here.
Hmm.
Knight cut off tail of dragon. He got some of the wings damaged. Dragon can't fly. Now the dragon's got his nail stuck through the shield. This is like a physical event that's happening before our eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, notably, in most of the St. George, this sort of ruined me for other renderings of St. George and the dragon because all the rest of art history, the dragon is quite small. Much smaller than St. George in general. It more looks like this slightly larger than an iguana.
Yeah, it took a while for people to come up with the idea of what if you fought a big guy?
I think that's also because as, civilized creatures, we're accustomed to the idea that if we see a small animal, it's not that big of a deal. But
Yeah.
in real life, if you came across like a coyote or whatever, you would probably be cooked.
Yeah, like back in the day when people were regularly getting done in by a boar,
Yeah.
you'd be like, wow, if a little thing could breathe fire on you, you'd be just that'd be it for me.
Yeah. Maybe it could even bite you. Or in a lot of like readings, it's like venomous. Like,
Yeah, but nowadays, like, you know, well, it just doesn't work anymore. We need to make them bigger.
yeah, I need hypernormal stimulus.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, shall we go look at some of that right now?
Yes.
This was
Yes, please.
very
Is it going to make me excited or afraid and sad?
oh,
Yep, more afraid and sad.
yep. So this is from her illustrated Sleeping Beauty. And this is the scene, and this dressed and fascinated me equally as a child. This is the scene of all of the suitors who are trying to crawl through the thorns and dying in the thorn bush. And if you look, um, if you look closely at this image, even though it is something that by its nature one wants to actually look away from, she's not just like drawing like a bunch of bodies kind of tangled in thorns. These are decomposing bodies. You can see, like, especially the figure that's kind of crunched up above the block of text is just like his skin is rotting off of his face. It's horrifying. Uh, I wanted to put this in, even though it's like not her most like the gorgeous illustration, because I think the decision to illustrate this way to emphasize the just like I don't know like horror and human suffering and basically one of the most regular fairy tales that we
Yeah.
have is so fascinating, and I think it's a really big part of her work. Like the sort of there's a brutality in fairy tales, and the kind of modern renditions of them get farther away from that. But the thing that really makes them like mean anything is when you both have like the love story and the beautiful like gowns or whatever, and then you also have like hideous, terrible human suffering. Kids love that stuff.
Yeah. It's, yeah, I think this also, maybe you could, I think there might be like an angle of different historical perspective on the world where, you know, it, where like the gowns and everything, that isn't just things being nice, it also means that you're protected and that like there's some food saved and the house is warm, right? It like portends much greater physical comfort, which is still a connection that exists in modern life too. But I wonder if it wasn't more urgent at the time those stories were composed, where, finding out that you're secretly the prince or whatever also means that you're protected from people just randomly coming to your house and stabbing you with a, sword or whatever.
Dude, that's really interesting. I'm sure you're right. Like just the idea when you didn't have like more than one outfit,
Yeah.
somebody giving you a walnut that you crack open and there's another dress in there, you'd be like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm not going to be like, naked
Yeah.
or whatever." Like it would actually be more important than simply like why I have a luxury item.
Whereas now, if they said you can go get a walnut and crack it open and there's a dress inside, you would sigh and say, "Can they not just email me the walnut?"
Yeah.
Nowadays, with the way things are these days, you know.
Yeah. Oh, so the other thing I want to talk about in this image is that the style that the sort of media that she uses in her drawings, so it's like these pen and ink drawings, which is like we looked at a bunch of that sort of style of stuff already. You see it a lot in illustration. I think because it's like, it's fast to do a pen and ink drawing and it reproduces very clearly and well. Um, and those tree branches, they're just beautiful. They're really good. They look painful.
Yeah.
You can look at this and like as a child I remember thinking, well, like I could get through those thorns. Like but it's just like a thorn bush, like
Yeah.
whatever. Like I hack my way through it. You can see looking at this image how you would get gradually stucker and stucker and then there'd be nothing you could do.
Yeah.
These are like beautifully observed branches. But the other thing I think that she does that's really key is that it's when you start with pen and ink, it's really easy to add color in a way that doesn't complement it. Uh, and I think she's always really, really careful to have the colors and the ink outlines, they work like hand in hand
Yeah.
together. And I think one of the reasons that this works so well is look at how there's not a ton of color here.
Yeah. Like there's not a lot of there's not even the color that's present is saturated. Everything's very like grays and browns, but also there's very little color of anything that isn't a neutral. There's a tiny bit of blue, a little bit of yellow and green, but it's basically it.
Yeah. I think like if you've seen a badly colored modern comic, which is,
Yes.
another medium where you're dealing with heavy black outlines and then
Hmm.
colored by someone else afterwards, like that's how you do it wrong.
Yeah.
This is how you do it right. Something's got to take a back seat. And in this case, the like just this like delicate watercolor. And I brought another image. I'm gonna go grab it. This is oof, over here. Hang on. This is a artist named Arthur Rackham. And then
Yeah.
we'll talk about more of some of his stuff
Yes, I
later.
would love to talk about more Arthur Rackham later.
But I wanted to drag this over because it's such a clear influence, and the he's like the master of beautiful line work, especially tree related line work.
Yeah.
And I think one of the really like cool things you can learn from looking at his work is that you don't you don't need to color everything real hard, especially if you have so much line work. Like these lines are doing so much work here. Um, you just drop in a little bit of color, just enough to set a mood. You don't need to overdo it, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Should we look at one more drawing?
Yep. Give me just a second.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just me right now, and I'm gonna. Wow, I guess this is my chance to shine. I get to say whatever I want. I should have prepared a speech.
Let's try the lower range.
That's how life is.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Should we just skip on to the next one, or is there anything more you want to say about this?
Oh, just the feel and the texture of this is like totally horrible in a great way. It feels like you're watching a bunch of spiders crawl around, and the face has this perfect mood of like not directly expressed like fear or even sadness, but just this sort of like I don't know, traumatic blankness. Like it looks like
Yeah,
one of the like Egon Schiele or however you say that paintings, just somebody who's like has is just going through something.
I feel like I've made that face. I think I made that face when I was up on the backhoe.
Yeah.
See, that
You
was the
kind of
face I was making.
looking like that.
Yeah.
Or like
How did this happen? How did I get here? I can't go back. That's here's the thing about this. Like you could play a scene like this for just straight horror,
mhm,
but I think that with that face in the foreground, like it's not like he's screaming
yeah.
or like blood's coming out or whatever. This is just like a messed up human man. And I think this sort of like focus on this, even in a scene like this, on the like basic humanity of this, not even a character, just like a random guy. I think that's a real key to what's like so incredible about her artwork. She always draws a complete person somehow. It's never
Yeah.
just a like stand-in character. It's always like that looks like a real individual guy
Hmm.
having a pretty
Okay.
bad time.
That time.
Yeah. So shall we move
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Okay, here I go.
Yeah.
Okay, get it.
This one's more fun. Look at that. Everyone's having a good time.
Yeah, I've been trying to do sort of art so that,
Yeah.
we
Oh, those are
throughout the
great. Yeah.
show, we kind of go down to some difficult places, like we're on a quest or something, and then by the end we come back up. And it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
here we are. The show's almost over. It's time for something nice.
Yeah, this is the beat. I get, this is the thing that happens in the old Star Wars, where at the end, as the climax, everybody gets an award,
Yeah.
which is such an unusual story beat when you think about it.
Did you ever get an award for anything, Abelard?
Did I ever get an award? I mean, I got like, I actually think I got a participation trophy, the thing that people used to complain about. I think I got one of
Oh.
those when I was a kid for maybe like baseball.
Oh, wow, baseball is truly the most participatory sport.
Yeah, I sat in line with everybody else. I was out there waiting for something to happen too.
Yeah. Well, congrats.
Thanks. I wish I still had it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm proud of
I could
you.
mount it on my wall.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Well, anyway, none of us have killed a dragon, but
Yeah,
if you did, you'd want it to play out kind of like this.
you'd want the king to shake your hand.
You'd want a pretty girl to gaze at you.
Yeah,
Uh, this is a beautiful painting. Um, here's my favorite thing about Trina Schart Hyman, who I loved as a child, and I still like. I just think she's brilliant. Um, she in go look at all of her work. She has never drawn a stiff pose in her life. Some of the pieces that we've looked at and probably will be looking at in the future on the show, there's a guy and he's in proportion and he's standing around, but he kind of like he doesn't kind of look like an alive person.
yeah,
Every single one of these figures looks like a real alive person. They're like you can read their emotions and what they're thinking from the way that they're standing. They're just like fully embodied in a way that not a lot of artists do. And they're not like drawn in a complicated way. And Abelard, you were talking about like this in relation to cartooning
yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, I think there's a lot being done here in terms of economy of expression. Like you can think of the in, in the sense that this book has a lot of little nods to Middle Ages illustration, something you would see in like the marginalia of a Bible or something like that. And in particular, I'm borrowing this point from Kenneth Clark, uh, which is that this was a time in human history where people, rather than observing the bodies and like surroundings around them, they just sort of brought it forth from within with essentially like just mark making. Like they just had a handful of gestures that they would do to draw a figure and the draping on the figure without thinking too hard about, well, what does cloth actually look like? What does a body actually look like? Because your basic ideology is opposed to the material world. But I don't think that's what's going on here, but there are a few like loose references to it. And some of that medieval illustration, like the Très Riche du, du
Deep
Berry,
Yeah, I'm
I
not
think
going to try to pronounce it, but rest assured I could not do any better.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry out there to all of my medieval French peasant fans. But some of those do have this same kind of like relatable posture. Like there, you can imagine what it would be like to have that body and be in that situation. Anyway, I think that there's a synthesis between that stuff and general ideas of cartooning, which are that we're trying to get across a gesture, an expression, a mood, and that you pick only the marks that you absolutely need to make to get that across, like the face of the king or the body language of the woman in the black coat who you see so little of her body, but you can still tell how she's standing and sort of what she's thinking.
Yeah, you can see how she's leaning up against her dad and how I don't know, there's just like this like closeness there that's so beautiful. Like you can tell even though it's not drawn in a huge amount of detail, you can tell how where everyone's weight is. There's I don't know, like see, I think this goes beyond just cartooning. The way I've been thinking about it is like that there's if you're drawing a cartoon in a like a good cartoon, the emphasis is on sort of exaggerating the position and the emotion. And I don't think these are exaggerated. I just think they're very like she just concentrates on that as a thing to bring forward in the art. instead of concentrating on, like drawing a very detailed dress or I don't know. She's
Yeah.
so good. Um,
There's also a lot of like this is a very sophisticated composition, and it would be easy for this to devolve into sludge. But there's a lot of really graceful color here. You had mentioned a few things. One thing that I would call attention to is if you look under the handshake and you see the little kid like peeking out at him, framed perfectly by this little square of green, right?
mhm.
All of the elements around it are set up so that it's like a little cameo of the space.
Yeah, it's so good. Here's two things to look at in this composition that are just like really special. One is the black cloak on the woman in the center. Look at that flat black cloak. Look at how there's no just like uh or something. I don't know. It's just beautiful. It splits up the composition. You like it's so bold. It's so good. The other thing that's working in this composition is that, there's so many people here. And it would be really easy to, like Abelard just said, to just kind of it just be a bunch of shapes that kind of, you can't make head or tail of. The thing that is helping that not happen is the series of red objects that kind of form a sort of half circle around the lower edge of the painting. So the knight's cloak, the queen's cloak that kind of trails around on the bottom there, the hat on the little kid. It just makes this sort of curved gesture that kind of cradles the bottom of that image so that you don't fall off it. Uh, and that curve, is centered around the figure of the girl with the black cloak. And then also, and it's almost dumb that there's this like red sun right up at the top, but
Yeah,
I think it really works.
it looks really nice.
I think it's really beautiful. I love that like you can tell what time of day it is.
Yeah.
I love how dark she lets things get. I think that this is something else that works really well with the pen and ink drawing. Those trees in the background or in like the shadows and the dragon up in the back, it's really dark. You can't see
Yeah.
those details. It's
It's
great.
really clever to the dragon's tail on the left, the way that recedes into the background. And that stuff is rendered with these very sharp light contrasts that really make it feel very three-dimensional. And it's also receding, which makes it seem like there's a ton of like physical space in that like far middle ground of the image.
Yeah.
So you feel like these people, like, again, it's not simply icons. It's you have a set of people that are physically relating to each other in the foreground, and then people behind them, and then like physical mass behind it. And there are even people kind of attending to the dragon. I don't know what they're about to do,
They're just
checking
checking
it
it
out.
out.
Yeah,
This is also like this is just human behavior, right? If
yeah,
somebody killed a dragon in the neighborhood,
yeah,
we'd be out there taking pictures and like poking it and see if you could like I don't know break off his scale to
yeah.
keep I would do that.
I would do that too. I would go out
Yeah.
on the stoop at least.
And you'd stand around with your buddies and you'd be like, dude, it's a big dragon, I guess.
Yeah.
Good thing he got killed. Do you think we can eat it?
Yeah.
Barbecue?
The classic, I read somewhere that it's okay to eat it.
Ah, good, because I was worried it might be poisonous, but if you read it in a book, it must be true.
Well, I wouldn't say a book, but somebody posted that it's fine.
Great.
Dig in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get the grill up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I hope we can have a good dragon barbecue later this summer. Just like in this picture.
Yeah. I would love that.
Just off screen, somebody's starting a big fire.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a nice thought.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah. This was back in the good old days when you had to kill what you ate.
There aren't enough stories about how awesome it is to eat a particular monster after you've killed it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of uncommon. Although I think that recently some people have made some inroads into
Yeah,
that
I
thinking.
was
But
gonna say that. Yeah, I guess you're right. We're
yeah,
talking about the contemporary manga and anime, Delicious in Dungeon,
yeah,
right?
Dungeon
Yeah,
Meshi. Yeah, I haven't read it or watched it all, but I like
yeah,
its focus on ecology, and that's cool. But
yeah.
anyway, is there? Okay, I'm going to say one more thing about this.
Okay.
My last point, look at how the curve of the horse's head, that dark black, and then you stick your blonde knight in front of it, and then that's yet another
Yeah.
example of like here's a big moment of contrast. This is where your eye is going to land when you look at it, and that's your main character. You got
Yeah.
this like yellow and pale head silhouetted in front of the dark mane of the horse, and when you're drawing stuff, you got to think about things like this. It doesn't happen by accident. It's just really smart. All of this stuff is like super considered, and it's when it all works together, it's beautiful. Yep.
Wow.
Wow.
Huge fan of Trina Sharp, Hyman.
Yeah, she's great. Look at her stuff.
Yep.
Well, I guess that's it for this week, but we'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone has any advice on getting over a sudden backhoe like sort of panic,
Yeah.
let me know.
Or just disillusionment.
Yeah, or any advice about disillusionment. I like this. You guys should help us out.
Yeah.
We've been having a hard time.
Yeah.
If you got any like words of encouragement, send it our way.
Well, until next time.
Keep on dreaming. Okay, I'm gonna turn the thing off.
Okay.